Welcome back. In this segment, we're going to go into input and output from many perspectives. So let's just get into it. There are several ways to present the output of a program. Of course, you can actually have it output onto the screen or output it onto a file. It's really completely up to you. But Python, the beauty of it is that it offers all of these options to you. So let's just start with fancier output format. This is about outputting something onto the screen or the console, sometimes it is called. There are two ways to format your output. The first way is to do all the string handling yourself using string slicing and concatenation operations you have learned earlier. Now, the string type has some methods that perform useful operations for padding string to a given column width. This will be discussed shortly. The second way is to use formatted string literals or the Scr Dot Format Method. We will go through some of these examples. The string module contains a template class which offers yet another way to substitute values into string. Again, we will cover those as well. There's one more question that remains, of course. How do you convert values to string? And fortunately, Python provides this function called str that allows you to do that. Of course, you can use repr as well. My personal preference is str. The str function is meant to return representations of value which are fairly human readable, while repr is meant to generate representations which can be read by the interpreter. For objects which don't have a particular representation for human consumption, str will return the same values as repr. Okay, so let's get started. What we have here is that we're trying to store the value hello, comma, world, full stop into s. All right, so we're trying to assign a string. The str basically converted into a format that is human readable. If you look at repr, notice that it added the so-called double quote on the side. Of course, you can actually have just s on its own, and you will see that it is actually very similar to str. We will show you later a little bit on str with some more examples. So if you print repr, it will remove the double quote. Okay. Right, let's have a look at the str a number, 1 divided by 7. Now, looking at that, you know that it's going to be a float. So let's have a look what happened to the str. It converted into a string. Now, I know it doesn't look like a string, especially if you're not familiar with it. So let's just run it like that and see what it looks like. Notice that when it's a number, it doesn't have the quote, single quote. Okay, so when you actually convert it to a string, you will see the actual single quote. That is really what str does. It converts it into a string. So let's look at some more example. You have x is equal to 10 times 3.25, y is equal to 200 times 200, and then you have s is equal to single, the value is up to this point. Okay, so this part is string, plus repr, meaning converting the x, the result of x, of this multiplication into a string, plus bracket with a comma, and y is plus, again, another repr, y plus dot dot dot. So, and then we print s. Let's have a look what it looks like. And what you get is exactly that. It's human readable because of the print. So that's the actual functionality of repr in combination with print. The repr of a string adds string quotes and backslashes. So hello is equal to hello world. /n means a new line. Hellos, repr world. So now we're actually converting the hello into hellos, basically converting it into a string. And let's see what it looks like when you actually do print it. Notice that the /n is still there, okay? And that's one of the beauty of repr is that it actually retains that because it adds the actual string quotes and backslashes. Right, What happens if you have this? Okay, so you have a tuple here. You have x, y, and then another tuple. So when you REPR it, and you will notice that, remember x is from here, okay? So it allows this to come through, but these are not strings, okay? So you can actually provide as an input any so-called arguments into REPR. Okay, so that's really what this is saying, is that the argument to REPR may be any Python object. There are two ways to write a table of squares and cubes. All right, so let's compare this. You can print these are numbers, and now there is actually a print with a space at the end, and this is what it looks like. Now note the use of n on the previous line. Now n here basically means that we have a new line. Okay, so now what happened is that if we actually use REPR, okay, and we're using right justify 2, right justify 3, right justify 4. So let's run this and print this, and notice that you can format it in a way that is much more pleasing to the eye. And finally, you can also do it this way, and when you print it, it's actually generate the same result. Okay, now I went through those codes very quickly, so let's come back and revisit this. What are we doing here? We are trying to actually print a table of sequence. Okay, the sequence is squares and cubes in this case. And you notice that when you actually just print the number, the so-called visualization, which is this one, it's not so nice. Like, it just doesn't come out very nice at all. That's because of the alignment issue. Alternatively, if you actually have an end to it, which is a slight variation to this, it doesn't actually seem to change much. All right, the visualization is still very similar. So one way to do it is to make use of REPR, and then right justified by 2, REPR right justified by 3, and then REPR right justified by 4. And when you actually do it this way, it actually right justify, and just need to make sure that your spacing is correct. Now you do need to specify this based on the length of your numbers, because this is 1000, 4 digits, that's why you have to use 4 here. The most common way, since Python 3 came along, is to make use of this method here. What is this method? It's basically you preset the format. Okay, so this is 0, refer to index 0. This is 1, refer to index 1. And this is 2, refer to index 2. And then you have 2 decimals, 3 decimals, and 4 decimals. And running it this way, what you have done is that you actually have provided the spacing in according to how you like to have it display. Now notice if I do it wrong, and this is what happened, the alignment is off. So hence you actually do need to specify how many decimal correctly. Okay, note that one space between each column was added by the way print works. It always adds spaces between its argument. This example demonstrates the string.rJustify method of string objects, which right justifies a string in the field of given width by padding it with spaces in the left. It's very similar to ljust or str center. These methods do not write anything, they just return a new string. There is another method, which is str.zField, which pads a numerical string on the left with 0. It understands about plus and minus sign as well. So we have 12 here, zField 5 means we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then basically we're wanting to achieve 5 decimals or 5 digits, sorry, I should say. And so in order to fulfill the 5, it needs to actually add 3 leading 0. Likewise with this, 7 digits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And also if you actually have a number that's much longer, then that field 5 will not work at all. It won't throw out an error message, but it will just continue as per normal. Okay, now there's this function called Scr Dot Format Method, which we've seen it slightly earlier. You can actually do it this way. So we have print, this is actually a placeholder referring to the first index here, and then you have another placeholder which refers to the second index here. Now notice the format here. You have print with bracket and then single quote and then followed by dot format. Within the quote itself, you provide the parameters. If you have two parameters here, then you refer to it in the sequence. If you want to switch the sequence, then you actually have to provide an index number. Okay, let's run that. Okay, so you notice that we are the nights is actually being used to replace this or remove the so-called placeholder. Say 9, it replaces the placeholder. The brackets and characters within them called format fields are replaced with the objects passed into the str format method. A number in the brackets can be used to refer to the position of the object passed into the str format method. So if I do it this way, 1 and 0, you will notice that it becomes no longer the result becomes we are the knights who say 9. It will become we are the 9 who says night. So let's run this. Okay, notice that it's switched. Okay, so that's what this numbering is for. Here's another example. We have two inputs, spam and eggs. In the normal sequence, 0 and 1, you have spam and eggs. But now that we switch 1 and 0, you will have eggs and spam. Okay, so that's precisely what that function actually is for. Now, if keyword arguments are used in str.format method, their values are referred to by using the name of the argument. Okay, so if you actually have the keywords arguments used. So here we have an example of two keywords argument, which is food and adjective. Okay, we have spam and absolutely horrible. Then when you print this, and then notice the placeholder, the squiggly essentially, or the curly bracket essentially is the placeholder, and you notice that you can actually use the keyword argument as the placeholder now. So you will get print, this spam is absolutely horrible. You can also combine positional and keyword arguments as well. So you have 0, 1 and other, you have 0, 1 and other. So what you will get now is that the story of Bill, Manfred and George. Okay, when you have an apostrophe A applying ASCII, apostrophe S is applying string, and apostrophe R applying RAPR can be used to convert the value before it is formatted. Okay, so we have here contents use, print. My hovercraft is full of the contents, which is use here. So if we do that, it will just look like this. Now, what happens if I put an apostrophe R that refers to this, which is RAPR? So we should actually have a double quote, okay, or single quote in this case. Okay, single quote here. You can also have an optional semicolon, and format the specifier can follow the field name. Okay, so we'll show you how that works. Let's import from the modules or the package called mathematics, and we want to make use of the variable called pi, or constant called pi. As you know, pi is very long, 3.14, and then on it goes. So what we want to do here is that the value of pi is approximately 0, which is referring to this. Colon here is just a place, and basically this is actually informing Python what's to follow will be a format specifier. So you have 0.3 float. 0.3 means 3 digits. Okay, 3 digits after the full stop. So run this. So you have that full stop. You have 3 digits. Okay, so it becomes 3.142. Now, if you are passing an integer after the column, it will cause that field to be a minimum number of characters wide. This is useful for making tables pretty. Here you have the table. You have, don't know how to say this, Trojan 4127 Jack, and then decab. And now you're actually iterating through this for name and phone in table.items. So basically from the table, you are actually retrieving the item one by one, and then you have the key, and then you have the value. So you print first, which is index 0 with 10 characters wide, and then you have the first index and then also 10 characters wide. So that's to format it nicely like this. If you have a really long format string that you don't want to split up, it would be wise or nice if you could reference the variables to be formatted by the name instead of by position. You can do this by simply passing the dict and using square bracket to access the key. The same table that we have before, so you can print Jack, and then now is 0, meaning referring to index 0, and then you're trying to retrieve Jack, which is Jack here. Okay, so that's what you're actually trying to refer to, but what you're actually retrieving here, you're providing this key, you're retrieving the phone number, and you're doing it for all three. Okay, so you have Jack, which is this portion here, and this is using this key to retrieve the so-called phone number. This could also be done by passing the table as keyword arguments with the asterisk notation from our earlier class. So you can actually use this to unpack it. And notice that it actually unpacks it really nicely for you. Okay, so this is particularly useful in combination with the built-in function vars, which return a dictionary containing all local variables. For a more complete overview of string formatting, do have a look at these. Format string. This is just a really quick tour of how you actually conduct string formatting. I hope that has been useful and informative for you.